Nintendo is a gaming company that always seems to like to innovate things. Whether it be innovating new ideas and gameplay features into decade-old game franchises, or introducing new experimental hardware features onto their systems, regardless if they're successful or not, one can definitely say that Nintendo always attempts to introduce new and exciting ways to play. So how come for a period of time Nintendo decided to take what is arguably their biggest game franchise and proceeded to do nothing innovative with it? Mario games right now are in a pretty good place. We're getting a remaster of Mario RPG, a brand new Princess Peach game is in the works, a remaster for Luigi's Mansion 2, and the big one of course being the new 2D Mario platformer. Mario fans currently have it good, especially compared to a decade ago, because that was the era that I personally deemed to be the fall of Mario games. I'll get into what I mean when I say that in a bit, but before we can talk about the fall of Mario games, it's important that we talk about the initial rise. Technically, the rise of Mario games initially started with the release of Super Mario Bros. Back in 1985. Yes, Mario technically appeared in other games before this one, but Super Mario Bros. Was the one to lay out what would be the foundation for the franchise. You know, the hero, the bad guy, the princess, bad guy kidnaps the princess, and we as the hero must stop the bad guy because kidnapping is bad and he's also really stinky. We beat the bad guy, rescue the princess, end of story. That's basically how every major Mario game from here on out would go down with. While it is one of the most important games to ever be released, and it is by all definition a classic of a video game, the game itself was ultimately pretty alright, being a pretty solid platformer on the NES. Though the gameplay would improve with the release of Super Mario Bros. 3, where it took the original game and improved it in pretty much every aspect. Better graphics, better level design, the introduction of world maps, new power-ups, new enemies, new environments. Super Mario Bros. 3 was pretty much gaming's greatest sequel at that time, and Nintendo would follow that up with the release of another great sequel, Super Mario World. Once again, we got improved graphics, new enemies, the introduction of the Cape Feather, Yoshi would make his debut, and the world maps from Super Mario Bros. 3 would be replaced with a big island consisting of many themes and environments. Mario World was a pretty fitting name for the game, as it basically took the Super Mario formula and took it to a grander scale that hasn't been seen before. And Nintendo would continue to do this with future entries, even when the series transitioned into 3D. Super Mario 64 being the first time we saw the series enter 3D, and it would be the next big evolution for the series. We got unique environments, a new set of power-ups, and Mario can do a variety of new moves. He can triple jump, wall jump, ground pound, dive. He can do this. That's cool, right? And then there's Sunshine, where Mario is once again back on an island, but now it's all tropical themed with its own unique settings, and we once again see a lot of new things added to the table. New characters, new bad guys, Mario's existing moveset from 64 would be expanded with the inclusion of Flood, Bowser Speaks.
The water's great, hey Junior! Mario! How dare you disturb my family vacation?
And then there's Mario Galaxy. Dude. Galaxy. Super Mario Galaxy was the most ambitious Mario game to ever be released up to that point. Mario's moveset was slightly simplified, but the unique spherical design of the levels in each world changes the way you interact with it, all the while providing a somewhat deep narrative that we never got from a mainline Mario game ever before or even since then. What I'm basically saying is that each mainline Mario game was building off of and evolving from the last one. It felt like the franchise was progressing with each installment. That's also not including the RPGs, which gave their own interesting take on the Mario IP. Mario RPG, the first two Paper Mario games, the Mario and Luigi games, basically all these games will build upon the initial foundation of Mario and or give a new take on the IP. Everything seems to be going well. Until a certain video game came along and pretty much turned the series completely upside down. The game that would mark the beginning of the fall for Mario games. I am of course talking about New Super Mario Bros. Now before anybody gets the wrong idea, I want to make it clear that I don't hate New Super Mario Bros. In fact, I find it to be a pretty fun game, and the praises that I have given to the other Mario games can easily be given here. Good level design, interesting environments and themes. I like the new power-ups that are introduced here. Mario's moveset from the 3D games such as the wall jump, ground pound, and triple jump are here, which is nice. It is a good game, so why am I calling the release of it the beginning of the fall for Mario games? Well, since its release, New Super Mario Bros. Would become its own line of Mario games, and it would get 3 additional games. New Super Mario Bros. Wii, New Super Mario Bros. 2, and New Super Mario Bros. U. And while the new entries in the mainline 3D Mario games built off and evolved from the last entry, the New Super Mario Bros. Games pretty much did the opposite of that. Every new entry in the New Super Mario Bros. Series felt pretty much the same as the last one, with nothing substantial that makes them stand out from each other. Sure, there were some new additions, each game featured at least one new power-up, the Wii entry introduced 4-player co-op, but that's not really enough to make these games different from the last, especially since they really are very similar to each other. They all play similar to each other, they look similar to each other, they all have have similar level designs, they all have the same world themes. The final boss in each world since the Wii entry have been the Koopalings, and NSMB2's OST has 0 original music tracks. Pretty much all the music in that game was either ripped or slightly remixed from NSMB Wii's OST. Just look at the gameplay footage for Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. One can easily tell the differences from each of these games purely based on the first level from these games. Now look at the gameplay footage for each of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. You'd think there would be a massive difference between these games since we're on the castle levels, but there isn't. Oh, what's that? You can't tell a difference? Well, I put footage of new Super Mario Bros. Wii twice on screen. Yeah. I caught your ass, didn't I? Not that actually putting footage of NSMBU would be that much different, it also just looks the same compared to the other 3. To me, New Super Mario Bros. Is a game series that only got worse over time, with the original being the best since it has the most variety in terms of bosses, it had those really fun minigames from Mario 64 DS included, it had the best multiplayer mode, and it has the bragging rights of being the first one to do this sort of game before it got boring and unoriginal by the time the 3rd entry came along, let alone the 4th. Now this wouldn't be that much of a problem. Well, that's a lie, it would be a big problem since it's incredibly lazy on Nintendo's end, but really I wouldn't be that bothered by it. But it then became a big problem when Nintendo decided to implement the unoriginal elements from these games onto other Mario games that weren't New Super Mario Bros. The main reason why Nintendo did this was because the New Super Mario Bros. Series of games, and to be more specific, mainly the first 2 games, sold well. Like, really well. Like, we're talking about some of the best-selling games Nintendo has ever released up to that point. So naturally, Nintendo saw the success from the sales of these games, as well as a somewhat positive reception from them, and thought, hey, we don't really need to try so much, do we? We can just grab the things that we used in these new Super Mario Bros. Games and put them in our other Mario games. Everybody does enjoy these games after all, and it'll save us from doing any additional work and effort than needed. I'm sure no one will mind or even notice. The effect New Super Mario Bros. Had on other Mario games wasn't immediate, it didn't exactly happen as soon as the first game came out, but it had definitely started to affect the Mario games that came out during the 8th generation of gaming. Oh, the 8th generation of gaming for Nintendo, what an awkward era for them that was. On one hand, we did get the 3DS, the greatest handheld system of all time in my opinion, and we did get a couple of really good games. But on the other hand...
Oh, wow! That is
the biggest piece of dog shit.
Yeah, even though this was the generation where Nintendo graced this godforsaken planet with Kid Icarus Uprising, it was still overall not a great time to be a Nintendo fan, especially if you were a longtime Mario fan. I'm still not sure if the choice to add New Super Mario Bros. Elements to the rest of the Mario games was a mandate on Nintendo's end or was simply a choice by the developers, but it was a choice that ended up negatively impacting the Mario games that were released during this generation. The same 8 world settings that we saw in New Super Mario Bros. Would be recycled as the key settings and environments for games like Paper Mario Sticker Star and Mario & Luigi Paper Jam. The Koopalings, who were initially a very nice inclusion and throwback in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, quickly outstayed their welcome when they started to become the main enemies in what felt like every single Mario game at that time. I've already mentioned that they became the main bosses in every New Super Mario Bros. Game since the Wii entry, but they were also the main bosses in games like the aforementioned Paper Jam and Paper Mario Color Splash. They even became the majority of new drivers in Mario Kart 8, like look at the original Mario Kart 8 character roster, I think we all forgot how bad this looked. Even Super Mario 3D World, which was basically the Wii U's mainline Mario game, aka the follow-up to the Mario Galaxy games, couldn't help but have a world map that has nearly the exact same world themes from the new Super Mario Bros. Games. The only one that they didn't do is the Jungle World, instead that got replaced with a colorful amusement park themed world and made that as the final world of the game instead of the usual lava world. And I really like that, it's a very interesting setting and it subverted my expectations and I wish the game did more of that. Now I want to say that the games that I just criticized aren't bad games. Okay, I want to say that most of the games I just criticized aren't bad games. I honestly really like 3D World back when I played it on Wii U and even to this very day with its amazing Nintendo Switch re-release. But they all could have been so much better if they replaced the recycled ideas with ones that were original, innovative, and you know, actually new. Because stuff like this does matter, whether it be something as big as the settings that these games take place in or something as small as the variety of new playable characters in a go-kart game. Even the Mario games that we got during this generation that didn't borrow anything from New Super Mario Bros. Still ended up never exceeding anything beyond serviceable, such as the very mediocre sports games like Mario Tennis Open, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, and Mario Sports Superstars. Oh yeah, and who can forget about the Mario Party games during this era? Hey, let's make Mario Party games that play nothing like the Mario Party games that players know and love and still sell it as Mario Party. Okay, sure. It's just a shame that the era where we first saw Nintendo games jump into HD, as well as the first and only time where we saw them in glasses-free 3D, was the era where Mario games were at their most bland and flattest. This should have been the generation where we saw Mario games be at their most experimental and their most insane in terms of gameplay or features. The sky was more or less the limit to where Mario can go in this generation. They should have gone nuts with it. Go crazy!
Go stupid!
But no, Nintendo didn't go nuts, crazy, or stupid with Mario. They played it safe. I want to reiterate that there were still a few legitimately good Mario games, but that's all that they were. A few good games and a giant wave of ones that were mediocre, bad, or generally forgettable. And it can all be traced back to when Nintendo wanted to water down these games in order for them to recapture the success of New Super Mario Bros. And yeah, successful during this generation, Nintendo was not. But there would be a light at the end of the tunnel. For better or for worse, the release of the Nintendo Switch acted as more or less a fresh start for the company, an opportunity for them to completely move on from their last gen mistakes and start anew with longtime fans, those who had a falling out with them, and new fans. First impressions matter, which is why we would see the release of two notable Mario games in the first year of the Switch's release, Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle and Super Mario Odyssey. Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle was a very unusual game, even just by the idea of it alone, a crossover between Super Mario and the Raving Rabbids. Really? But it ended up working in its favor because it was something odd but ultimately interesting, and it's something that we haven't seen before. And more importantly, the game was actually pretty good and fun, being a turn-based tactical RPG, something that the Mario series hasn't tackled before. But it worked out well, and it provided a brand new, interesting, and at times challenging experience. This game alone already beats a good amount of Mario games from the last generation based on originality and concept. But then there's the big chungus, Super Mario Odyssey. This was basically the Mario game everybody has been waiting for since the Galaxy games. As much as I and many others like 3D World, it didn't do enough to make it feel like the next big step from the Galaxy games. Again, recycling old locations would do that. But Odyssey, nearly everything felt like a fresh new take on the Mario series. The locations that Mario goes to are either brand new or an interesting take on ones that he had already been to. We got a bustling city, a kingdom based entirely on food, the Bowser Kingdom, which you would think would be mostly filled with lava, but instead it goes for a Japanese temple aesthetic, which is really neat. The Sand Kingdom has these really cool inclusions of Egyptian and Mexican imagery alongside red sand, which is a lot more interesting than sand environments from last gen Mario games where it was basically just, hey, let's take the grass world but make it sand yellow. Or how about the Snow Kingdom, which has a lot of snow and a lot of fog, and it perfectly encapsulates the cold environment, and it is actually a really good snow world. It wasn't just Nintendo taking the grass world and making it white. Mario's moveset in this game has also been improved, mostly thanks to the inclusion of Cappy. With him, Mario can do all kinds of cool moves that we haven't seen him do before. This even includes all of the captures you can do within the game. Also, we finally get an influx of new characters, such as the unique inhabitants within the kingdoms and the variety of new bosses that we haven't seen before in a Mario game, and not a single damn Koopaling in sight. Mario Odyssey is nothing short of an amazing game. It was the Mario game that people have been wanting for so long, and more importantly, it was the Mario game that the series absolutely needed. And it's absolutely safe to say that Mario games are pretty much now doing better than ever before. Mario Kart 8 will get re-released on the Switch and see many improvements compared to the original game. This especially includes the character roster as of late. I've already brought up how great the re-release of 3D World was, but I have yet to talk about the extra mode that came alongside the re-release, Bowser's Fury, which was basically Nintendo dipping their toes in what a hypothetical open world Mario game can possibly be. It's pretty fun. Mario Kart gets real with Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, which is pretty much a combination between a Mario Kart game and an RC car toy. It's no Mario Kart 9, but it was still a pretty fun novelty that I had fun with. Paper Mario would continue to improve on being more original with Origami King, even if it's still not as great compared to the first two games in the series, but hey, gotta give credit where credit is due. The Mario Party series is finally back to being good. Super Mario Party was a step in the right direction, and Mario Party Superstars is the first Mario Party game since DS that I can happily recommend to anybody who is looking to have some wacky Mario Party fun. Mario Tennis Aces, even before its post-launch updates, was leagues better compared to the last two Mario Tennis games that I've already mentioned before, since the gameplay was a lot more quick and fast-paced, and it had more than enough things to do in single player with its story mode. And it all leads us to where we are now, with Nintendo announcing and eventually releasing Super Mario Bros. Wonder, a brand new 2D Mario game that looks like the next big evolution for this type of Mario game. And this right here pretty much marks the end of the new Super Mario Bros. Series as we know it for now. And it is also one of the many signs that Mario games are now back to being original and exciting, and that the dark age of the Mario series is finally over. So yeah, Mario games are back to being great again, and for the first time in a long time, I'm actually really excited to see what Nintendo will do with this goofy little red plumber man. Especially since the next mainline Mario game should be announced sometime soon. It's been a long time since Odyssey released, we're due for a new one by now. Oh yeah, and by the way, I want to make it clear that while the Mario series has improved a lot since the Wii U/3DS days, the series is still not at all flawless. Nintendo has definitely missed the mark with Mario a few times during this generation, but I don't think it's anywhere near as bad compared to before. But still, there's always room for improvement. But yeah, that's more or less the fall and rise of Mario games. Very glad that Mario is now back to being original again. I still won't forget about the original Mario Kart 8 roster though. Look at this, they take up 1/5 of the roster!